The Sepik is the largest river in New Guinea and one of the great rivers of the world. It dominates one of the least developed areas of Papua New Guinea, an area of swamps and jungle-clad hills and mountains. In this country, air is the only fast means of transport, and wherever possible, airstrips have been built, often on the edge of swamps or nestling against the hills. One such airstrip is at Ambunti, the sub-district headquarters for the Upper Sepik River area. The man in charge at Ambunti is Assistant District Officer Des Martin. After going through the New Guinea campaign during the war, Sergeant Martin said to himself, never again, and settled down to a nice, comfortable job in a Sydney bank. 2 years later, Patrol Officer Martin took up his first appointment in New Guinea. He has been Assistant District Officer at Ambunti for 2 years.
Well, there's one little fellow that's not too happy about the administration.
Now, in the northwestern section of New Guinea, you have the Sepik District. To the north of the district, you have a range of mountains here, with Wewak on the eastern end of these ranges on the coast, which is the headquarters of the district. To the south, you have this massive central range system, and in between these ranges, you have a very large swamp depression in which you find the Sepik River. The Sepik River is the dominating point in this massive swamp depression. Now, the river rises at a place called Telefomen in these central ranges. I think we can see that better on another map over here. And it flows westwards into West Papua and then back eastwards for 800 miles, twisting and turning through this great swamp depression until it gets back to the coast again. Now, here at Ambunti, the river's still about half a mile wide, and it's navigable for another 500 miles or so from Ambunti up to the West Papuan border. I'm in charge of the Ambunti sub-district. Now, this sub-district's about 8,000 square miles in area, and it runs from about here up to the West New Guinea border. Now, there's been some administration contact for the last 50 years or so between Ambunti and the coast, but there hasn't been so much contact between Ambunti and the West Papuan border. The area west of Ambunti is inaccessible, it's massive swamp, and it's very, very difficult to travel in it. With the coming of the administration, there has been and will be great changes in the culture of these people, and even today we see a great change in their art. The Sepik River area is famous for its art carvings. These carvings are mostly associated with the house tambourans or the spirit houses of the people. These spirit houses were the places where the people had their old religious practices, and they were taboo or forbidden to women. With the coming of Christianity, they're not building too many of them anymore. As they fall down, they're not being replaced. But a few months ago, the people of Corrigo village here built a new house, tambourine, and I was invited down to see it. Corrigo is an important village on the Sepik because it's the home of Mr. Bonjui, the representative for the Sepik district in the Legislative Council at Port Moresby. The district officer from Wewak, John Wakeford, and myself were invited by Bonjui to the Sing Sing to celebrate the completion of Corrigo's new house tambourine. There was quite a reception committee to meet us, headed by Bonjui. People from several villages around had gathered here for the Sing Sing, but before the dancing began, there were, of course, the speeches. The new house tambourine is behind the dais.
Now,
Pidgin is the lingua franca here, as elsewhere in the territory of New Guinea.
I'm looking pirai blong austambrand blong yumi, mi looking me bel blong mi good palatru, mi hama mas long Master Whitepot. one the number one Kiap long mi pala Ambunti to palay
After Bonjui had welcomed us, John Wakeford congratulated the people of Corrigal on the fine house Tambran they just built.
Now you fella make him good for the work true. He good for the passion, long all man, now all merry, all he work one time.
Corrigal people spent many months building the house Tambran and some weeks preparing the costumes for the dancing. Dancers dressed as women are depicting female spirits who play a part in the Tambran ceremonies. Well, that's surely one of the last genuine house Tambrans to be built on the Sepik River. But I can assure you we don't spend all our time watching sing-sings here. My job is to maintain law and order in these downriver villages such as Corrigal, and to bring law and order to the more remote areas further to the southwest and in the swamp country that hasn't been contacted as yet. With the introduction of law and order, we try to bring education, health services, agricultural services, and probably more important, a wider political concept. One of the things that beats these people at the moment is the fact that they haven't got much of a political concept. Their loyalties and their ideas of things don't go much outside their own village level. Now, to help me administer this Upper Sepik area, as well as having the sub-district headquarters at Ambunti, we have a patrol post at a place called May River, which is a tributary of the Sepik River. Now, this post was established in 1955. It's 3.5 days by workboat or canoe from Ambunti. It's about 220 miles away, and it's the most isolated post in the territory of New Guinea and probably one of the most isolated administrative posts in the whole of the world. Now, normally when we establish a patrol post, we like to have a good group of population and an airstrip to service that population and service the administrative centre. But in the case of May River, we couldn't do that. There was a special reason for establishing the post. In 1955, the people from around about here, Yellow River, or a large group of them, came down fishing onto the Sepik near to the mouth of the May River. Whilst they were fishing there, they were invited to a large feast by a group of people from some of the villages around May River, and during the course of the feast, they were attacked by treachery, and 29 of them were killed. And after they'd been killed, they were carted off to these villages up near where May River is today, and there was a big feast took place that night in which these 29 deceased people constituted the main course of the feast. Now, when we heard about this at Ambunti, a patrol was dispatched up there and spent quite some time in the area and eventually was able to round up all the culprits who were eventually sentenced to some years in jail. Now, we were forced to open a post at May River to protect the wives and children of these people who'd gone to jail. Most of the male population was involved. Their wives and children were left unprotected and would have been killed by their traditional enemies if we hadn't opened that post there. And that's the reason it's there today. Now all is fairly peaceful on the May River. The patrol post has been established since 1955. It sprawls over a little cleared hill, an island in a sea of swamp jungle. From the patrol officer's house on the top of the hill, you look down to the river and the never-ending dense sago swamp. It's this that makes it impossible to build an airstrip in this area. The May River Patrol Post is staffed by one patrol officer. He's a young chap from Victoria, Barry Downs. His nearest contact to the outside world is at Ambunti, 3 days downriver by motor canoe. Barry's main job is to make contact with the villagers in his area and to introduce some idea of law and order. Right now he's preparing for patrol upriver and into the distant hills.
Scanning up long 10 man, long 10 a day. Talking Dr. Boy long ready, more medicine, long patrol, long house sick.
His police party are carefully briefed. They will be away from the post for a week or more. There are still quite a few remote areas in the Sepik District, such as this, which have not yet been fully explored. And there are still a few tribes who have seldom or never seen a white man. People such as the Algots. The Algots are mountain people who have recently moved down to the hills nearer the May River. The whole village lives in one communal house, which is the general pattern in this area. Over the years, the Algots have been decimated in tribal fighting. They've heard vague word of the administration and the safety that it brings, and now they've moved down to the hills nearer the May River, hoping to find a more peaceful life away from unfriendly neighbours. Pigs are one of the basic items of their economy. They domesticate them practically to the state of our own domestic pets. Cowrie shells, which they use to ornament their bodies, are also important in their economy. You might say these things are their money. In gardens close to their house, they grow taro, yam and bananas, but their staple diet is sago. Pigs are only eaten on ceremonial occasions and don't play an important part in their normal diet. Down below them lies the May River. The land along the Sepik and its tributaries, such as the May, is poor. Small gardens are scattered along the banks of the river, often some distances from the village. Food gathering is a never-ending task for the women and girls. It is safe now for the women and children to come and go as they like, unaccompanied to their gardens. Yet remember, it was only a few years ago that these very people were involved in the Yellow River massacre, in which 29 people were eaten. The river people live mainly on fish and saksak, the pith of the sago palm that grows in the swamps. In the villages along the river, the women are always busy making saksak. Day after day they pulp the pith and then wash it to extract the starch. The May, like the Sepik, flows swiftly. It is thick with mud and full of dangerous snags hidden just below the surface. But in this swamp-infested land, it's the only way to travel. The May River people are now in regular contact with the administration through the patrol officer. The villagers are happy enough now, but this is surely going to be one of the most difficult areas in the world to develop. There is nowhere for an airstrip, little of the land is fit for agriculture, the mosquito drives you mad, and malaria is rife. The river may rise and fall as much as 20 feet in a night, and regularly every year it floods its banks and flows under the village houses and through the surrounding countryside, making the canoe the only way to travel. There are many little waterways, or barracks as we call them, which go off from the main river. One day they may be easily navigable, and the next, with a fall in the river, practically dry. It's impossible to use the outboard motors in these little barracks. Propeller shafts or pins would be continually breaking on snags, even if it was deep enough to use the motor. This barret ends in a large, still, swampy lagoon. On this particular patrol, Barry was going to try to make contact with some hill people similar to the Argots, called the Shuamus.
Up in cargo. Now you me go now. Right, only kill up on water.
To get to remote villages like this, the patrol might have to walk several days through steamy jungle swamps and then up over the hills. The whole Shuamu group live in one heavily stockaded house. They are understandably apprehensive. They live lives of fear in which the rules are kill or be killed. They have heard of the administration, but they're not sure what attitude to adopt towards Barry and his patrol.
All right, you me looking, man. Policeman, he come. You're right. You fellas sit down. You fellas can sit down. You fellas policemen, sit down. All right?
It's Barry's job to tell these people about the administration and the advantages that it brings, in the simplest terms. To talk to them, Barry has to go through 2 interpreters. Slowly, the talk is turned back and forth from Pigeon to May River, from May River to Shuamu.
Now through and come up, me good there me good pala through you can arrange some pala talk belong am.
Now how much man and Mary stop?
Naga Ivan Naga.
How much?
Yeah. Ivan Naga.
He has heard talk of murder committed by these people in family fights and traditional intertribal acts of retaliation. Barry must try to stop local raiding and tribal fighting.
Me like look him. Kiss me come outside.
There's no embarrassment when Barry asks about a killing. They quite happily produce the bones of a murdered woman and the murder weapon, a dagger made from a thigh bone.
Now this called a bone. Emi bone belong muru?
To these people, such killings as this are a matter of course, as natural as catching a bus to work. It's part of their everyday life.
Now this fella bone, em belong Mary? Emi die finish, huh? Is that he shoot him?
While Barry is talking to the men, his medical orderly is giving the children their first taste of our medicine. At first, they're not quite sure about it. Once the first friendly overtures have been made, it's usually not long before some of the villagers find their way down to the patrol post.
You fella come looking me fella long station.
It's meetings such as this that are the beginning, the very beginnings of a new life for these people. At present, they're an isolated group. Soon they will start becoming part of the whole community of the Territory of New Guinea. One of the main jobs of a patrol such as this one is to bring our ideas of law and justice before these people and to try and get them to bring their disputes and complaints before properly constituted courts and to stop repaying murder with murder and more murder and so on. I might say that when an accused person gets into a court, he's ably and fairly defended by a barrister, a properly trained barrister, in much the same manner as they are in British and Australian courts. The main function of the courts is to educate and not to punish. If a man is primitive and he's committed a crime such as murder, he may have been morally and socially obliged to do his killing. And if he's sentenced to death, as he would be if he's been proven guilty of willful murder, it will be commuted to only 3 or 4 years in prison. And that's the normal practice for people who come from areas such as May River. Whilst he's in prison, he's taught a trade, he's taught agricultural practices, and what's more important, he learns to live with other people who are strangers, who would normally be killed on sight in his own home area. The High Court comes to Ambunti about 3 times a year. We build a special courthouse for the occasion. Mr. Justice Mann, the Chief Justice of the Territory, is explaining what is happening at the conclusion of a murder trial.
Time government come up past them on place belong you will look at the man belong fight. You play work yet long kill him biro belong you pala kill him along banara na kill him along sepir too.
I am acting as one of the interpreters.
Yantang kwat nanang angkwanyang tenda nanang nanan nyai kwat visigang pangu vegal tendi.
That's the Crown Prosecutor. The accused.
The prisoner will be kept here on the station for a long time.
The Defence Council...
While he is here, he will have a chance to learn about the government and the law.
Barry Downs from May River.
I want to talk to you about the case that has just finished. I want to explain to you what is the work of the court. Now that this case is finished, all you other people who came here as witnesses will be going home, and I want you to be able to explain to your people what the government and the court are trying to do to help your people. When the government first came to your place, all your men were great fighters. Much of the time they were fighting their enemies, killing them and being killed in return. Your men, women and children lived in constant fear of attack and could not walk about away from their villages.
Well, I hope that's given you a glimpse of what we're trying to do here in the territory and a look at some of our problems here in the Sepik. In the Rabaul area, the Gazelle Peninsula, in the highlands, the problems are much different. The peoples there have very good land potential and their future's assured. And along with their future in agricultural development, they'll also go ahead economically and politically and educationally. In the Sepik, the future is not so bright. Because of the conditions which you've seen, the swamp conditions and the bad terrain, their future outlook is not quite so bright as the other people, but we'll do the best we can to see that they do have some economic outlet as time goes by. However, it's not my job to philosophise about these matters. With the river villages being quite accessible, progress along the river will be fairly rapid. But once we get up to the Shuamus and the Algots, progress is not going to be so rapid, and it'll be a long time before they're interested in telling you about President Kennedy or Dr. Sukarno. The only thing we can be certain of, that whatever happens, the old Sepik River will keep on running muddly down to the sea.